Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next super stock company spotlight. Today, I am back with Johnson, CEO of Fintech. Once again, our next super stock presenter stock symbol is PKKFF, PKK on the CSE. Johnson, welcome back.
Thanks, Jack.
So, Johnson, every time you come back, it's always good because the stock is usually up. So the stock right now is looking really good. I think we hit $1 today. It was just about 40 cents, when you first came on, when you first debuted about 6 weeks ago. So there's a lot of interest in the stock. Every time, you've been coming on, there's more and more, the audiences are growing. So listen, congratulations, on the double in the stock, but, Johnson, our audience, they're looking for, 10x to 100x upside. So what we need to do, the whole point of today is for you to tell us what's happening, like what's gotten the stock to where it is, but more importantly, what's going to happen to get the stock to that 10x level.
Okay, let me start by answering the first half of that question. What has been happening, seriously, Jack, has been the awareness. Peak has been one of the best kept secrets in the stock market, the micro cap, for a number of maybe months, even a year now, and we're looking to change that. So we come on programs like yours, and we're trying to get the word out, and getting the word out to new investors. And when those new investors take a look at the company, what they see is they see a company operating in a very attractive space. The Chinese fintech space is probably the largest in the world. You have some very, very large companies operating in that space. We have access to over 100 million businesses to which you can sell their services to. Company's been growing at a very, very rapid rate. So they see a company that went from 1.6 million in revenue in 2018 to 11.7 million in revenue in 2019 and forecasting 40 million in revenue this year. So they see exceptional growth. So that's attractive to them. And we've also announced a number of significant deals over the past few weeks and months. Notably, we announced a deal with the city of Nanjing, where we're going to be the engine behind a commercial lending financial center that the city is going to be launching with us over the next few weeks. And we also had a significant deal with a national consumer electronics distributor called Beijing Diagen Company. So we call the company BDC for short, but that deal alone gives us roughly about $1.3 billion in annual revenue if we are able to sell our financial services to their 60,000 plus online retailers. So the last thing is that, frankly, investors can count, right? So they look at a company back in August that was barely trading at 1 times forecasted revenue. When you compare that to other fintech companies that are trading at 10 to 15 times forecasted revenue, investors can tell for themselves that this is a bargain. So even at these recent prices that the stock is trading at, if we were to trade at the same multiples that some of the other fintech companies are trading, our market cap should be about 4 to 5 times higher than it is right now. So that explains why people have gotten behind the stock, behind the company.
Yeah, I mean, at least, I mean, some of the peers in your peers in that space are trading at 10x higher than your multiple.
Yeah, on average, we're saying 10 to 15, but some of them are trading at 20 to 30 times multiples.
Yeah, no, the market's crazy. So we're going to actually we got a bunch of questions that are just coming in from the audience. So we're going to get into all those questions in a few minutes, because that's really what this is all about, is getting your answers to their questions. I think, look, so the good news is the revenues are exploding. I mean, the market obviously is it's a massive market opportunity, and that kind of brings us kind of to the I think the elephant in the room, or ironically, is the ant. The ant is the elephant in the room. And look, that IPO, I guess it's on hold. Whatever's happening there, it's they got their issues going on there. There's some political stuff. So I think that at the same time is just highlighting how big the opportunity for the fintech space is, what you're doing. And then I guess the question is, and I think some of the money people are, they say, hey, we can't buy ant. can we buy, Peak? But then I think one of the big questions, and I see a lot of people are asking this, is how are you different than Peak? What's the difference between Peak, excuse me, than Ant? What's the difference between Ant and Peak right now?
Yeah, let me start, Jack, by addressing. I know that a lot of people are concerned about the regulators that have put the Ant IPO on hold right now. And let me start by saying, first of all, that what the regulators in China are doing is very important, and it's actually beneficial to companies like Peak and to companies like Ant. Here's what I mean. A couple of years ago, when we pivoted to the fintech space in China, there were a lot of P2P lenders. And honestly, the P2P market in China was the wild, wild west. I mean, it was, some of the companies were operating illegally. Consumers and businesses alike were being taken advantage of. Some of them were running pyramid schemes, you name it. So the government stepped in with some regulations a couple of years ago and really wiped the slate clean and got rid of all those companies. It was bad enough that not only did some of those companies shut down, some of the executives actually went to jail. So the whole P2P industry in China was giving platforms like ours, like Ant's, a bad name. So we're really, really glad that the regulators stepped in and cleaned all of that stuff up. Now Ant is not a P2P platform. Neither is Peak, by the way. But Ant is running into some regulations, and here's why. Ant is not just, by the way, it's Ant Group. It's not Ant Financial, right? They changed their name from Ant Financial to Ant Group. That's because Ant offers a variety of services. So they offer banking, they offer investment services, insurance. Everybody knows, I think, Alipay, which belongs to the Alibaba Group, but also actually belongs to Ant Financial. So they have payment processing. They have a whole bunch of services that they provide, so that the government considers Ant not to be a fintech platform, but a diversified financial services company, right? So if they're going to be portrayed in that way, the government says that Ant needs to abide by the regulations that the banks, the insurance companies, and all of those other companies abide by. So that's the issue right now for Ant. And that's why their IPO has hit a bit of a snag, so to speak, right? But we are totally different because we are not a diversified financial services company. We're truly a platform. And that's the main difference between us and Ant. Now, there are some similarities, obviously, between us and Ant. And those similarities are the fact that, yes, we are a platform. We operate in the fintech space. We have some of the same clients. Ant focuses more on the consumer side of things, whereas Peak focuses more on the small business side of things, right? And excuse me. Ant also has built a company based on a model, on a subscription, not subscription, but membership model, right? So it's kind of like Amazon. It's a blueprint that these companies have taken, right? Amazon, Alibaba Group. So they bring you in, right? So they bring you in, you become a member, and you use their services. All of a sudden, they gather information on you. They continue to grow that network. They offer you more and more services. So Peak is the same way. Right now, we have an ecosystem of small businesses that are, we're hovering around 25, 30,000 small businesses that are part of our ecosystem. And just like Ant, we're growing that ecosystem slowly but surely. Now, the deal that we just signed with the BDC, that's a deal that can allow us to grow very quickly. So all of a sudden, we're adding about 60,000 small businesses to our ecosystem. So with that one deal, we're doubling the quote unquote membership of the Peak ecosystem. But similarly to Ant, what we're doing ultimately is we're growing this ecosystem where we have data on all of our members and we're able to offer them services, financial services, but other services down the line. Now, the difference between us and Ant, and why we shouldn't be concerned about the regulations, is that unlike Ant, they offer those services themselves directly. They offer loans, they offer insurance, they offer all these things. We do not do that. The main difference between us and them is that we are, quote unquote, really like a broker. We're in between, right? So we leverage our platform and we offer these services to banks right now, but we may in all likelihood, we will offer insurance. We'll offer different products to our members, but we're not going to do that ourselves. We're going to offer products, and we're going to charge a fee for the matching.
So I think the main thing is essentially, you know, Peak is purely a tech platform. You're not touching the cash, which I think the government, the Chinese government, it makes them probably more comfortable, because I think they probably don't want to have anybody have too much control, you know, in certain areas, you know.
That's the other thing. Ant has grown so large right now that they're actually competing. They're competing with banks, and it is a worry for the Chinese government. If you have an account, whether it's Alipay or any other account within the Ant group of families, you can hold savings. They offer you investments, right? They have, I think, I forget the name of the fund, but Ant actually has a money market fund, if I'm not mistaken, that last year in 2019 was the largest money market fund in the world. So you can see why the government sees them more as a diversified financial services company as opposed to a pure platform.
So yeah, so basically, okay, so just I guess the bottom line for investors, okay, so Peak essentially is purely a tech platform. You're not really touching. You're not touching. I know you did a little bit when you started off. You were doing some loans directly, but essentially now it's purely a technology business.
We are, yes, that hasn't changed, by the way, Jack. The platform remains the platform. We have a subsidiary, right? We have a subsidiary that is itself a lender. That subsidiary has to abide by the regulations, but that's outside of the Peak platform, the Peak, what we do, right? So that's not an issue. It's a small part of our business. It is regulated. It's going to continue to follow the regulations, so it's not going to be an issue for us.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to jump into the question. I think one of the key things is the BDC deal. You said potentially it's about $1 billion in, you know, total. I mean, that's their total ecosystem of, you know, 60,000 could result in $1 billion, but you know, obviously you're not going to get the full $1 billion, you know, in the first year, right?
Not right away.
Okay, I like that. Think big. All right, so let's jump into some questions, and then we'll kind of circle back. So, Safraz was asking about, is there an analyst report coming out on Peak?
Yes, I don't know how Sarfraz got that information, but he's got some good contacts. Yes, there should be an analyst report published on the company within, I would say, within the next couple of weeks or so.
Okay, and you had a report actually back in what is it? The what's I'm trying?
Yes, we had a report that was done by E-Research.
E-Research, yeah, great report. Yeah, great report.
Yes, it was a Canadian research company, but now we're getting a research report done by I believe it's Zacks. More geared towards the U.S. market, so better distribution to the U.S. audience.
Okay, so Zacks, you know, look, Zacks does really good work. You know, they're very well respected. But the E-Research also, I mean, that report was great. I mean, I think if I recall, it was a $2 target that they had on the stock.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, the Zacks report should be a little bit more up to date because it will take into consideration some of the later agreements that we've had, whereas the E-Research report does not factor that in.
Yeah, that was kind of an old. So yeah, so that'll be good.
Yeah, that report will probably be refreshed as well, but we're looking forward to get the Zacks report out in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, so Safraz is jumping right into the the good questions. When are you putting out revised projections?
Yes, we did mention that in light of the new agreement with BDC that we will be looking to revise the forecast that we put out earlier this year. We were forecasting 40 million for 2020, and I believe it was 55 million for 2021. But because of the revenue potential coming from the BDC deal, we will revise those forecasts. Now, we may do that before the end of this year. We're still crunching some of the numbers, looking at talking to our partners and seeing what's feasible. Yes, you mentioned earlier that it's a potential of 1.3 billion in annual revenue, but realistically, what can be expected over the next 12 months, 24 months? That's stuff that we're still trying to determine right now before we publish a revised forecast. But we will do that eventually.
Okay. I mean, even if it's an extra 50 million, that would still get you to 100 million run rate, and that's worth at least 500 billion in market cap.
I'm not going to comment on that, but we're optimistic.
Okay. So okay, so, and then we'll talk about future deals because we're just scratching the surface. Let's we definitely have to get into that because I think investors need to know that the story hasn't ended with just this BDC deal. I mean, you have more stuff in the pipeline, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the BDC deal is a blueprint for us. Obviously, they're not the only distributor in the country, so yeah, we can talk about that a little bit later on.
Okay, yeah, and I want to ask you more about the other e-commerce financing opportunities you have in China. I think. Okay, so Adrian is asking, what's the this is, I guess, touching on what's the expected penetration for small to medium businesses in the Jiangyin deal, and how much does it mean in terms of revenues? What can you do in revenues from the Jiangyin deal? That came out last week, right? About a week ago.
No, that was what came out last week was the Nanjing deal. But I think what Adrian is referring to is to a financial center. That was actually the first financial center that we created, was in the city of Jiangyin. Jiangyin is a little bit smaller than Nanjing in terms of the number of businesses that are in the city. There's about 200,000 small and micro businesses in Jiangyin, whereas there's about like 600,000 plus in Nanjing. But specifically, what we expect from the Jiangyin deal, let me just say that that financial center is in operations. So there are revenues being generated as we speak from the Jiangyin deal. Now, it's too early to tell, unfortunately, Adrian, what can be expected. If you recall, our first foray in Jiangyin was to provide supply chain related financings. So that's how we started. A lot of the business is still supply chain related, but more and more now we're getting more traditional or non-supply chain businesses that are subscribing to loans via the financial center. But it's too early for us right now to tell just how much the penetration rate will be. We should have better visibility into that in the coming months. Probably like first quarter of 2021, we should have enough data to be able to answer that question.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting my cities mixed up. I just know Tinghao, right? That's that's where I'm a little bit. Okay, so we covered this, right? The projections, earnings release coming up.
What was the question?
Hang on a second. We just he's asking about when is where. Well, we got a lot of. Sorry, we just got a ton of. I gotta scroll up here. We got about 100 questions that just came in here. Hang on. Okay, here we go. Amin is asking about the revised projections, which you covered. Earnings release. When is the next earnings release?
That's going to be November 27th. So we're about 3 weeks away from that.
Okay, so that's coming right up. Jeremy is asking. I guess he's asking about how many of your shareholders are coming from China. And you expect awareness in China of Peak to have an impact? I don't think you have any Chinese, do you? I mean, from China.
We do have investors, Chinese investors that have invested in the stock. We wanted to make sure that they also wanted to make sure that our interests are aligned. So some of our biggest shareholders are actually Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but as far as giving broader access to China, we would have to do that because it's difficult for Chinese residents right now, even residents in Hong Kong, to buy the stock once it's listed. If it's not listed on a major exchange, so we can talk about that a little bit later on. But that's one of the reasons why we want to uplist to the Nasdaq, to give broader access, I should say, to overseas investors.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess in terms of like shareholders from China, you have from the mainland. You have shareholders right now, or here in the U.S. Or Canada.
No, from the mainland.
From the mainland. Okay. Yeah. It is like you said. It's difficult for them to really buy, to send money out of the country. Really, no.
Correct. Yes.
So okay. So I guess container guys. Johnson, I guess he's asking, how confident are you in that 40 million run rate becoming reality, like concrete?
Oh, okay. Yeah, we keep getting that question. I think the third quarter numbers will give people a better idea as to whether or not we will hit those. We will hit that target of 40 million. But I'm going to sit here to let everybody know that I'm not concerned at all about making the 40 million dollar target for this year.
Okay. You mean for 2020? You going to do, or 12 months? You talking about the
no, for 2020. I mean, if you're not aware, Jack, we had forecasted 40 million in revenue for this year in 2020, okay. And I know that some people are concerned as to whether or not we're going to hit that target. So that was the question. So my answer is that the third quarter results will give an indication to people as to whether or not they believe that we're going to be able to hit our target of 40 million this year.
Okay. And what about, now he's asking a follow-up, what about 100 million? Can you do 100?
I'm not going to comment on doing 100, at least not this year.
Okay. What, John, you see the question? Can you read that? I can't read that.
Any updates on Ginshar platform and outsourcing expenses?
Ginshar.
Yeah, Ginshar is, for those who don't know, that's the loan brokerage platform that we acquired at the end of 2019 and integrated to the lending hub, to the Cuba lending hub earlier this year. Yes, there have been some developments with the Ginshar platform. More and more sales reps are using the platform, and we are using Ginshar as expected to expand our services to different cities. Ginshar was actually very instrumental in helping us get the connections to the Nanjing Financial Center deal. So Ginshar is paying dividends. As far as the expenses are concerned, I know that people are concerned about some of the margins that we showed in the second quarter because of outsourcing services. Now, what we told people is that 2020 is going to be an investment year for us. The company's grown, right? So as you grow, you need to invest. So there are going to be a lot of one-time expenses in 2020, let's just say, that will not reoccur in 2021 and beyond. So profitability is expected to increase beyond 2020.
Okay. Amir is asking, when are you going to have a third city announced?
Okay, so if he's talking about, I think he means a financial center, because we're already in multiple cities already in China.
Yeah, like the deal that you announced, like the financial center stuff you were talking about.
Right. So far, we are in Jiangyin. We just signed a deal with Nanjing, although that the Nanjing Financial Center has not been launched yet. We expect to launch that later on this year. Third city, listen, we're always in discussions with other cities. Obviously, like, I mean, once a city sees something, it's working, they like the concept. So that's what happened. That's why we're able to sign Nanjing. I can't say right now that a third city is imminent, but we are having discussions with a couple more cities to be able to replicate the financial center.
And how does that work? Basically, what, like you it's kind of like a public-private partnership with the local government, where the city kind of, leads.
If you will, like, I mean, the governments are always trying to foster economic growth, right? They want to make sure that cash gets into the hands of the small and micro businesses because they contribute so much to local economies, right? So they know that the small and micro businesses have a tough time getting credit, right? So they see this platform that automates the process of distributing credit to small and micro businesses. So the government says that, hey, with this financial center concept, we're going to invite the banks that operate in the city to become part of the quote unquote financial center. And they're going to use this platform in order to find and qualify small and micro businesses for credit. And what the city of Jiangyin did was that they said, okay, they told the lenders of financial institutions, they said, listen, if you become part of this financial center, you use this platform to qualify our small and micro businesses for loans, because we trust this platform, we will be willing to guarantee some of the loans that you make through this platform. So that's the advantage really for small businesses, for financial institutions, by using or being part of this financial center concept. So we're working in concert with the governments, and we're providing the engine to find and qualify the businesses for loan. Okay.
Johnson, we got a ton of questions coming in, and we're kind of running out of time. I'm going to try to get a couple more questions, and we'll have to have you back. You know, when you first started off, there was hardly anybody in the audience, and now we have a couple hundred people here. So actually, here's an interesting question. I gotta pull this up. Would you? I guess he's asking, would you sell? Is PKK for at what price would PKK be for sale? $2, $5, $10 a share? How much? Would if Ant offered?
You know what? Honestly, like, I mean, I haven't thought about that. Our focus right now is to grow the business, right? So we want to grow our ecosystem. We believe that, as you mentioned earlier, Jack, that we're barely scratching the surface of potentially what we can do in China and potentially in other parts of the world as well, right? So our focus right now is to continue to grow the ecosystem, grow the business, revenue, profits, and of course, if somebody approaches us and there are synergies and they think that they can work well with us or whatever, we'll listen. But right now, there are absolutely no plans we haven't been approached, first of all, but it's not something that we think about. Our focus is really on continuing to build and grow the business.
Okay, let's do 2 audience questions, and then we'll kind of wrap up with, I want to ask you about what else you have in the pipeline coming up. So Safraz is asking about NASDAQ. Like,
okay, you're trying to list on NASDAQ. 12 months. Can you meet the minute?
I guess without doing a reverse. In other words, can you get your stock to, let's say $5 a share?
Yeah, that's an excellent question that we get all the time. And you know what? That's why we're here. Like, we believe that we can do it, Sarfraz. We believe that we can get there without doing another reverse split. There's a lot more room for growth and the market cap of the company. So we're going to continue to work towards that. So certainly within the next 6 to 12 months, our expectation is that we will meet the minimum share price requirement for us to apply on the NASDAQ.
I mean, look, I think if you actually start generating, 15 million revenues per quarter, the stock price will be, $4 or $5, maybe or more. I mean, it's once the market kind of sees the revenues accelerating and they kind of see that kind of the tempo and all that, that's usually what happens.
As I mentioned before, Jack,
this is opinion. This is not, guaranteed.
No, but as I mentioned before, like, I mean, if you compare Peak to other companies in the space, fintech companies, and you basically just apply the multiple that some of those companies are getting, the 10 to 15 times, and I'm not even talking about the 20. Some of them are getting 20, 30 times, right? So I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking if we just apply the 10 to 15 time multiples to Peak that some of the other fintech companies are getting right now, we should qualify to list on the NASDAQ. So is that going to happen between now and the end of the year and the first quarter of 2021? We don't know, but eventually we believe that will happen, and that's what will allow us to uplist to the NASDAQ.
Okay. So let's do last audience question, and then we'll Johnson, we got to get you back here in about a week. So probably after your next news release, because we're getting there's got to be 100+ questions more to go here. Rahil is asking, do you have any potential acquisitions in the pipeline?
Oh, that's a bit of a tricky issue. Listen, we're always looking, right? We're obviously, like, I mean, operating in China, we're dealing with the government at the city level sometimes. So we have companies approaching us, believing that they can add value to the group. There's some interesting technologies that we see out there, and our eyes are open. Now, are we in discussions right now, as we speak, concretely for an acquisition? No, but let's just say that there are opportunities around right now that we would be looking at. So yes, if there is a fit for a company that would bring value to our group, synergies to our group, yes, we'd be willing to make an acquisition.
Okay, I said last question, but I'll do one because Graham is one of our big contributors here. Would you explore going into India? I know I think we've talked about it in the past. No, like other markets.
Yes, we did. I think and on one of the earlier appearances, I did mention India. India would be an attractive market for us. Obviously, huge potential, similar to China. A lot of businesses out there, particularly small and micro businesses, which is that's our niche. And we do have a couple of contacts if we wanted to venture into the Indian market. Now, it's not something that we're looking at over the next 6 months, but potentially over the next 12 to 18 months, I would say, yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
I think the key takeaway is that you can kind of export your model worldwide, because look, if it works in China, which is a tough market, right? I mean, that's like one of the most challenging markets. You could do this in other markets. It should be very compelling.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is the concept that can be ported virtually in any part of the world.
Okay, so let's kind of wrap up here. We got what else do you have in the pipeline? Like, what's kind of the new? Like, you got this deal with BDC that got a lot of investor interest. Obviously, it's a major, it's a sort of a major revenue opportunity. Mm-hmm. What other kind of deals do you have in the pipeline? Like, what kind of news flow can investors expect? As we kind of head into the end of the year here.
Okay, first off. The BDC deal itself, the agreement is signed. We tweeted a picture, I think, yesterday about the development teams of the BDC and our developers in Wuxi getting together. There's some integration work being done right now. We're hopeful that the integration work will be done, I would say, over the next few weeks. So certainly before the end of this year, we expect transactions to start to happen with that BDC agreement. So number one thing is that investors should be looking for is an announcement of us saying that, hey, the project is on the way. We've had the first transactions related to the BDC. Secondly is the launch of the financial center in Nanjing. Again, we won that bid. That was the first step. Now there's an agreement being negotiated right now with the city of Nanjing. That agreement should be signed within the next couple of weeks, I would say. And then the financial center should be launched shortly thereafter. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, as you mentioned, as we were talking about earlier before, the BDC deal, the BDC is just a product distributor. Obviously, they're not the only product distributor in China. And consumer electronics are not the only things that are sold online or in the real world in China. So what the BDC deal did for us was that it provided us with a blueprint that we can replicate and make similar agreements with distributors, whether it's food distributors, appliance distributors, you name it, right? So we're actually in talks right now with a couple of distributors, and what investors could be looking for is more than likely before the end of the year, there will be another announcement similar to the BDC deal announced between now and the end of the year. Finally, the last thing that investors should be looking for is, it depends on the stock price, but we're very close, as we mentioned, to meeting all of the requirements to list our securities on the NASDAQ exchange. So that's something that we're looking to be able to do potentially before the end of the year. If it's not before the end of the year, then certainly we believe that early 2021 we should be ready to submit our application to list on the NASDAQ. So there might be other things like surprises, but those are the major things that I think that investors should be looking for between now and the end of the year.
Okay, yeah, there's definitely. I mean, the China fintech space is hot now that the ant is off the table. There's like this pent up appetite. There's this demand for these fintech deals. So if you're on NASDAQ, that'll definitely have some buyers. I want to ask you, Johnson. We're going to kind of wrap up with two last questions, and we'll get to our next presenter here. So Johnson, here's in terms of from your perspective, like what's kind of your vision for the company? 2 years out, what is peak fintech going to look like, assuming everything goes right? Like, is this going to be a $1 billion revenue? Like, what is the company going to be doing, and Are you going to be in China? Are you globally? Give us your kind of vision.
Okay, I'm not going to talk because we haven't put out our forecast yet. So I'm not going to talk about the revenue, what we're expecting yet. But in terms of vision, what we expect is, as I mentioned before, we just want to continue to grow our ecosystem. This is an ecosystem that we have built. There are small businesses that are being added to that ecosystem on a daily basis. There are financial institutions, brokers. We've been approached by insurance companies. So as we continue to grow that ecosystem, we're going to have an opportunity to offer more services. And when I say offer more services, I'm not talking about us, like Peak itself, kind of like the way Ant is doing it. They're offering services themselves and they're subject to regulations, right? We don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to be true to our model where we are a technology platform, right? We facilitate a way for those companies, the banks, the financial institutions, insurance companies, to tap into our ecosystem and provide services to our members, and we charge them a fee for doing so. So that's the concept. That's the vision that we have for Peak. So we see this growing. We're in the thousands of members right now. Okay, so if we can get to hundreds of thousands, obviously, like, I mean, we're generating 40, 50 million, 100 million with thousands of members, right? So if we can get to hundreds of thousands of members, potentially millions of members, then you have, you know, then it gives you an idea of just how big Peak Fintech Group can be. So now, as far as expanding to other markets, yes, as I mentioned earlier, certainly within the next couple of years, we see ourselves being outside of China, India, potentially other parts of Asia, and potentially in, you know, Europe, North America as well. You never know. But our vision is really to take our model, our ecosystem, and grow it basically globally outside of China.
Okay, you know, one thing we actually haven't talked about recently, which I think is a big, kind of a big deal, is that, you know, essentially, you know, we didn't really talk about the technology so much, and part of the thing that, you know, drives the platform is kind of the, you know, the AI behind it, the big data, the algorithm, and as right. Your ecosystem grows, the machine learning, you're getting all this data coming in, so you kind of see,
absolutely,
you know, what kind of loans work, what don't, you know, the customer behavior. So that becomes extremely valuable.
Absolutely.
Literally, this is like
yes.
a big data deal. This is
that's an excellent point that most people miss. But yes, the analytics part of our company over the next couple of years might exceed what we're doing right now in terms of charging a fee, right? We're charging a fee for facilitating transactions, but there's a whole business model with the analytics, with the data that we have not tapped into yet, that we will begin to tap into over the next year, couple of years, certainly. So that to me, that's probably the most interesting part of our business.
The analytics, I mean, that AI, that component could be more valuable. I mean, like people, you know, it's like we have
not it could be more valuable.
The existing thing right now.
It will be. It will.
And the revenue.
It will be. Yes.
It's and we should talk about that more on the next live stream. Talk more about that, you know, the AI aspects, you know, the data aspects, you know, the valuation of that, because, you know, again, like what we're seeing with companies that are in that, you know, they have the big data angle, like what, you know, it's just what an incredible business, which just becomes more valuable like by the minute as data comes in. So
as I mentioned, Jack, we're just scratching the surface here. With
okay, so Johnson, last question, you know, our favorite question that we always ask, you know, for anybody that's new here, in your opinion, top 3 reasons why investors should consider Peak today.
Okay, I'm going to repeat the same thing. It takes great people to make great companies. It starts with the team that we've been able to assemble. More and more, like, I mean, we have more quality people joining our team. We added a director, a very experienced director earlier this year. We added a special advisor who's been very, I speak to him on a regular basis, a lot of great advice, and he shares my vision, and he's helping us basically execute our business plan. So the number one thing is the team that we have in place. The second thing is just the potential. I mean, the sheer potential, yes, the fintech market, but you just touched on the analytics, the data. That's something that we haven't even scratched the surface yet. So the company's got huge potential. We've already proven that there is demand for our services. You look at the company's growth, revenue growth over the last couple of years, and that growth is expected to continue. So second thing is the market potential. Third, last but not least, is I'm sorry, but this company is grossly undervalued. I don't know what we're trading at today or whatever. We have made some progress, but there is still a lot of room here for growth in this company. So if you're looking for an undervalued fintech company that has a huge amount of potential, then I would say that you should consider Peak Fintech.
Okay, Johnson, on that note, I want to thank you, and we look forward to having you on the next live stream, and then hopefully we'll have some time to go through all the questions, because we're definitely by next week you're probably going to have we're going to need like at least an hour and a half to go through everything. So Johnson, thank you again.
All right, thanks, Jack.